Lina, and Yefim for very, very interesting, inspiring talk about your coming to this golden land, which is what we, in olden times, this is what people always thought when my family came here, that they were coming to this wonderful country where the streets were lined with gold. And this is not true, and it never was, but it's certainly true that we have the freedom to disagree and dispute and to question, and that's what our ethical society represents, I think, in the best manner. And we're so lucky to have you have come to us and join and become members here. And so anyhow, I just have one question, and that is what this is now our question period, and this is we're supposed to ask questions, comments, and be brief and all that stuff that we say. But I think that we may have many. And Paul, do you want me to do it? Okay, then we'll do it. But we also have I think we'll go. We have about a half hour for questions, and then we have announcements and people and things that people want to say. I have, I think, just one written announcement, and then we have our coffee hour, and we welcome everybody to come to it. The well, anyhow, let's have our questions. As I said, I have one question. What happened to my? Oh, you want to do it? No. Okay. Let me ask my question. My question for Yefim is, what happened to your friend? Is he the poet?
She was released one day before the meeting in Reykjavik between Gorbachev and President Reagan. In fact, she was the third political prisoner to be released after Andrei Zakharov and Anatoly Sharansky.
What year was that?
It was 1986.
Thank you. And other questions, Hadassah? Okay.
I'd be curious to know what would be the hardest thing about learning about the English language and or any of you as far as that is concerned.
I'll put it up.
Lina, Vera, can you come up here? And I'd like to request that if you ask a question, ask who would like to answer, because you may get 3 different answers. And I tell you when we were comparing notes with Lina that I thought that when Lina said she was so excited about Italy, and my thought was, you were excited about Italy? I was so restless in Italy, I didn't even notice Italy. I was excited when we crossed the border, for the first time, crossed the border to Austria. For the first time in many months, I felt safe. But anyway, so you can get 3 different perspectives. And your question about what's the intricacies of English, Lina, would like to?
I took some English, an English course in I took some English, an English course, a 3-year English course in the Soviet Union, and I was a technical translator from English, German, and a couple other languages into Russian. But I never heard spoken English, and I only translated technical, all kinds of academic matter. And when I came to my first class in Rome, it was my husband and I both went to to a little interview where it was discovered that his English is better than mine, because I was thinking for a few minutes before answering. I had to put it all in the right tense and all that, and he didn't. So I was sent to the most simple class. I forgot what the name was. And when the instructor asked me, "What's your name?" I did not understand. So she, through other people in class that translated for me, she said that don't worry about it. In a couple of weeks, we're going to start another class where they start with an alphabet. And I was horrified, but I couldn't explain that either. But I want to say a few words about my experience as far as English goes with writing the book. My writing partner was helped me and encouraged me, and she was there every day of that process. But as far as writing, that was done mostly by me. I was absolutely sure that I would write in Russian. It never even occurred to me that I would be able to write in English. So I started writing in Russian, and I told her that I will write in Russian, translate crudely into English, and then she would help me with editing. Well, as I was writing in Russian, I was thinking in English and trying to translate into English in my mind and trying to write in Russian in a way that would sound good in English when it's translated. I don't know if I explained that right, but after about a year I realized I have to write in English. So everyone goes their different ways as far as English is concerned. I didn't know how to ask, where do I buy bread when I walked into Jewel, but I could translate any technical book without any problems. That's my perspective.
Hi, Lina. I was struck by your comment that when you came to the West that you were pleased by the warm response of individuals. They seemed to recognize you. And I'd ask each of you, one of the senses that I would have had, naive as it might be, is that the government in the Soviet Union would be repressive, but that people would be bonded together and perhaps warm because of that repression. And that I guess I'm not so impressed that there's a uniform warmness amongst people here. Do you find that generally, in fact, people in this country give you more dues, recognize you, respect you more, than, and engage you more than people did in the Soviet Union? Either.
Any.
All. Choose.
Yes, I'm trying to, I had one thought on that idea. Of course, the friendship in the Soviet Union, from my perspective, I thought it has a little bit more intensity. People, of course, there were a lot of hostility. People were oppressed and hostility. But when you find a soulmate, that on the same wave as you are, people had very intensive friendship and not only support each other, and help in any way, but also they were like a social worker and psychiatrists to each other. So there was more intensity of friendship, and of course disappointments were greater when friendship was going sour. But in general, and my perspective was that more feared each other. In many places. My parents, for example, were afraid to talk politics in front of children because of children may go outside and talk about that. But what struck me in the United States, people were open. They were not afraid to talk about their challenges, their problems, their views, and it was kind of entrenched in the psyche. Of course, people are different, but I'm talking about majority of the people that I experienced.
We're so fortunate to have you here at the Ethical Society, and look what a big draw you are. think we have more than 70 people here this morning. Could Yefim or Lina give us some idea, how did you find us? And how do we reach out to others? Bena mentioned, that she had a problem when she filled out the religion part, because although she was Jewish, that she doesn't practice that religion. And I would assume that that's quite common with people coming from the Soviet Union. And do any of you have any ideas? I mean, how can we reach out? It would seem that this population is just, we're the perfect place and you're the perfect fit, and I love our marriage. So give us a little enlightenment from that point.
It was, I remember, before Memorial Day of 1996. Yefim told me that he heard on the radio about the organization and he would like to go to. And he called, spoke with someone, and we were invited to Lake Geneva. And we came directly to Lake Geneva, and first person we talked to was Tom Hapner, and we liked him very much. So after the weekend we started to go to the society, and how Yefim found out about society, he might add memories.
Peter Les is a guilty member here. Excuse me. He was giving interview on National Public Radio, and I was impressed with his interview. So I decided to check it out, and I spoke with Tom, and after I spoke with Tom, you know what's happening, so you speak with Tom. So that helped, man. As far as other people, it's a tough question.
I think my question will be directed to the ladies. And I'm a first generation person here, but I remember as a child the food stuff that my Polish-Russian parents would bring along. And today when I go to any restaurant and I order cabbage soup, everyone has a different flavor. And you were born in Russia, you had your own foods and your own vegetables and potatoes and turnips. What did you think of the food problem?
It's a very good question, I would say, because it took me like 2 years to get used to American food. I still cook the borscht the way I cooked it there. And I still like my mother cooking when she brings stuffed cabbage to our house. I don't have time to do that. And I also work with people who are coming to this country, and all of them in the beginning said, oh, sour cream is not here, it's not good. Cottage is not good, cottage cheese. Many things is not good as in Russia or Ukraine. But it takes time, and then we get used to food in America. And then, after visiting my country again 10 years later, I realized that food in America is better than in Ukraine.
I also wanted to say when there is not enough of something, it always tastes better. If you stand in line for several hours, you get it. Wow, that tastes wonderful.
Yefim and Lina, how did you meet?
Lina came first to Odessa when there was an earthquake in Tashkent in 1966, and she likes to discount it because she was only 12 years old. And then she came when she was 20 years old to Odessa for vacationing to Odessa. Odessa was a great place to vacation, still is probably. It has very good beaches, and it's on the beach. I actually grew up on the beach, and it was the best. entertainment I ever had.
I went to Zakhar, the three of you, Lina, Lina, and Yefim. Why did you pick Chicago over other cities in the US? I'm always curious about that.
Well, I don't know, Yefim and Lina will tell you about their situation. We did not pick anything. The Jewish Federation was looking for sponsors, sponsoring organizations in different cities. So when we were in Rome, our caseworker would, I would guess, send out papers about different families. But we didn't, no one at that time, when I was living in '76, had any relatives or friends anywhere. So we pretty much did not know where we were going. So we were called one day and told that you were going to Chicago. And all we thought of, as Lina said, was the slaughterhouses and gangs. And we sighed and we said, well, we have no choice. That, you know, it has to be better than Kiev. And when we were approaching, our plane was approaching Chicago, and we saw actually greenery under us. That was another shock that I missed the list.
By 1979, the changes were a little bit different. Procedure was a little bit different, and we were sent to Chicago. We also found out about it in Rome, only because we had distant relatives in Chicago. Vladimir and Marina Tsesis, who met us at the airport, were our Yefim's distant relatives. That's why we ended up in Chicago.
Yeah, back here. Obviously, you three made very good adjustments to a new country, but I remember reading 20 years ago anyway, quite a few articles about the Russian immigrants coming and things, particularly Russian immigrants, but having difficulty adjusting to essentially sort of a fast-paced, competitive American style where life is not guaranteed and there are winners and losers, and some people can fall out of the system or maybe don't adapt to the sort of hyper-competitiveness, or just for a variety of reasons. This, but what's your impression generally? Do most people coming work out as well as you do, or are there still people who come and find that this is not what they expected and they really can't adjust to life here?
We really liked America from the beginning, but of course there are people who are very disappointed, for whom it's very difficult to find a job, very difficult to learn English. I mean, difficult for all immigrants. There are people who are even coming back to now independent countries. It's very difficult, very, very personal.
Well, I wanted to say, as far as guarantees in the Soviet Union, I really don't know what you're talking about. All we were guaranteed was survival, pretty much at the public aid level. Oppression of all kinds of forms. And when someone asked me, did you encounter anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union? I said, personally, I didn't, because I didn't go to the places where I would encounter anti-Semitism. So the guarantees, I heard or read somewhere, Winston Churchill said, capitalism is an uneven distribution of wealth. Socialism is an even distribution of miseries. So when we came here and we were allowed to have more than one job, we actually had more than one job. We knew that if we work hard, there will be rewards. We worked very hard. So as far as I'm concerned, there are many more guarantees in the United States.
A few words that, I think that like everywhere else, people have different skills, different capability, different mental abilities, different attitude. And of course, it's, you're an engineer and also there's a bell-shaped distribution of anything, any process, and the same applies for people that, some people just have more difficulties adjusting because their abilities. And some people, they're going to be miserable anywhere they go, whether they at home or they go somewhere else, you cannot escape from yourself, That's one of the challenges. But of course there are, realities that change is very difficult for people. This is the most things people encounter in life is change. And you know, from our perspective, we were kind of running away from things and anything would seem to be better than what we had in the past.
There is some sense that we are increasingly living in a global economy, and that in fact goods and services and money moves back and forth and should move back and forth freely across borders. The ultimate development of that would be that not just goods and money, but in fact people can move freely back and forth across those borders, and there might be some more uniform benefit of that movement. From your experience, because I think each of you have gone back to what was the Soviet Union, would people from Russia and Ukraine and similar countries tend to leave those countries now? Would large numbers be inclined to leave those countries from the information that they have, if they had that freedom to do that?
From my perspective, as far as I know, if there was immigration now open to Western countries officially, many people would leave. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's not possible, so people try to make the best of where they are. But yes, the perception is that the West is much better. Of course, there's much more information now that only confirms that. Well, some people now are new riches, and they feel very comfortable where they are. So I guess it depends on where you come from.
Over the last 20 years, most of the Russian immigrants I've met have driven cabs for American Cab Company. And one of them said what's frustrating about the United States is here you can kill somebody, you can rob from somebody, you can get away with it. If you don't pay your taxes, the whole government comes on you. So I wanted to know what you found most frustrating about the United States, or what you still find most frustrating.
For my part, I find that education is the most frustrating for me. I have two children that came here very young. They went through schools, graduate schools. My younger daughter is an attorney, and the education is not sufficient as far as I'm concerned, especially for young children. And when I came, when my younger daughter was about 9, and I knew that all she was doing at home was 5 minutes for homework and the rest was TV, I went to her teacher and I asked her to give her more homework, and the teacher said, but you don't want her to miss her childhood. And I had to find private tutors, not really tutors, but just to give her more material to work with. And I find that now with my grandchildren, I find the same thing. I think this is, to me, the most frustrating. Something you have no control over.
I keep hearing different or conflicting.
Well, go ahead, because I was planning to say the same thing.
I read and hear conflicting reports about how Russia has progressed over the last 10 years or so. Are things getting better over there? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel for the Russian people in the near future?
Two years ago, I visited Ukraine. Cannot tell anything about Russia, but just a little bit about Ukraine. And again, I'm an optimist, and I thought that there is just to compare with 1993 when I visited Ukraine, so 9 years before that, they have now, don't have now inflation, they have supermarkets, they have many nice things. Of course, a lot of poverty. It was that unfortunately, because I like Odessa, I like Ukraine. It's the motherland of my mother. She came to Uzbekistan from Ukraine, and I wanted to believe that they will build something out of all this turmoil.
when my experience when I was go back to former Soviet Union, what I find most is I would say some kind of a lack of hope. It seems to me that people there don't believe that justice is possible, in general, and that's something. That's what my perception that we find. Whenever I complain about these closing newspapers and and the government taking a grip of all the media and they tell me it's natural, because they're politicians, so they don't think that. Of course, not all the people, but people that I talk to feel like lacking hope, and that's something that would strike me.
I love this program and like to hear all of you speaking. I do know that you have quite a few members of your family here with you, and I'm just afraid that when we get to go to the coffee place there, that we will not be able to really meet your family. Like Lina's mother and then the daughters and our little prince here who's behind us. And if that is not asking too much, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I would like to introduce my mother-in-law, Maria, and my father-in-law, Aaron. And everybody knows Ellen, of course, and next to him sits Lisa, and everybody sitting further over the next row.
I consider myself a linguist, and therefore I was very interested when Lina said that she was a translator, but she really did not know English too well. That was one point. And that made me think, because I also come from behind the Iron Curtain. I come from Czechoslovakia, similarly like you did, but actually differently, illegally sneaking over the border. So here I thought, isn't it terrible how the communist Soviet system envelops you and does not let you look out and think freely? And when I came to America, I decided this is what I have to stress, always and everywhere. Please be aware of it. Keep your eyes open.
All three of you were born and grew up in the Soviet Union. You were educated, no doubt, among other things. And from your trials and tribulations coming here, I personally feel a very negative attitude. Now, my question is, don't you have any positive feelings at all about the former socialist society?
Well, about the social society, no. About our childhood, about our friends, our families, and everything that people actually live through when they're young.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. These are our best memories, and I have friends here that I met as a child. They're still my best friends. I never met anyone who would be closer, probably never will. But as far as society, not much.
Well, I'd like to add that I had a great childhood, and I made lots of friends, many friends. In fact, my friends and I are still in touch. Some of them all over the world now. I was involved a lot with people who were organizing arts festival in the mountains of the former Soviet Union. It was semi-legal. We had a great time. There were one time, at one particular place, there were like probably 30,000 people gathered in tents in the forests, and was singing song and reading poetry. I had great memories of people, of course. But as Bella said, I have no, I have no respect for the system that was there enforced.
Do you feel that the tremendous oil reserves that were being developed in these Russian various republics and Tajikistan and so forth, that eventually that will raise the standard of living in the country?
I hope that that will be the case, but the problem with this rich country rich with oil, some speaker several months or a year ago said it's more like a curse. That most of those countries have a big rich oil reserve, have lots of trouble in the Middle East. But certainly it can bring some wealth to people. Whether it's going to bring wealth to lots of people, that it's hard to say.